Hello and welcome to Wargaming. We're back with another bolt action review, and in this video we're going to be looking at the Ostfront expansion book. Now, even with my limited grasp of German, I can understand that this means Eastern Front, and of course this book focuses on the Soviet battles of World War II. Now, it mainly covers the Axis German forces against the Soviets, but however there is one scenario at the beginning, well, it's a couple actually, that cover the Japanese-Soviet conflicts of the early war as well. So let's open this up and have a look at the contents inside. So opening up the book, we have the kind of preliminary pages, and what is in this book covers what I've mentioned as well, what kind of this book contains in the scenarios, and also this is the first kind of section, Kalk and Gol, which is the Japanese Soviet offensive of the early war. And in here we get all the background, which is kind of apparent in these books, kind of just detailing with the battles that happened. Then we kind of move on to some of the scenarios as well. And these kind of just give you a rough idea as to what to expect from them. We also get this kind of artwork as well of the troops. And this is the first scenario. Now, what's very interesting about this scenario is it's cavalry based, which is kind of what was seen early in the Second World War, however, because it kind of moved on from there. A very interesting kind of change to the game, really. I mean, used to seeing infantry and tanks and artillery, so it's quite a good a change from the ordinary to play with cavalry rather than mechanisation. It kind of carries on for the scenarios, and we've got the second scenario, Stormy Stormy Night. What else do we get in here? So this is kind of a army list for the, it's a little bit bright there, an army list for the Japanese there. So we get the headquarters, infantry, artillery, all those kind of things. And then we also get some actual unit information. So we've got the armoured car, horse-drawn limber, some of the flag carriers, and then this brings us to the second section, the Winter War. So this section covers the kind of Soviet-Finnish war that happened in the early parts of the war, 1939 to 1940. And of course this kind of goes into detail with all of the kind of snow battles and obviously the information in the background there. Now, what I do like about this section, which you'll actually kind of see repeated throughout the book, is these legends of the Ostfront. Now, particular kind of interest to me is this, right, I'm going to see if I can get this name pronunciation right. It's Simho Harrier, Hariha? Yeah, my Finnish isn't brilliant. But anyway, he was known as the White Death, and I believe he has the highest number of kills from a single person for any war, I think in the region of about 500 or something like that. So, lots of kills. He's an excellent sniper, which kind of reflected in the rules as well. He suffers no penalties for moving in snow, which you would expect from somebody who hunted the Germans throughout the winter. So we also got another character who I'm not even going to try to pronounce his Finnish name, but he was known as Larry Thorne. Continues, and we start to get the scenarios as well, and these all include kind of rules for ice and snow, which is a slightly different take on probably what you're normally used to playing, just like on more summer kind of theatres. We've got a few more forces there for the makeups for the Soviet forces, and this moves on to a few of the units as well. So you've got like things like flamethrower tanks and armoured cars as well. The next section is Operation Barbarossa. So you may know that Operation Barbarossa is when the Germans actually turned on the Soviets, who were their former allies, and actually stopped kind of moving into the Soviet homeland. So this kind of covers a lot of the rules for here, kind of cover the Soviets being overwhelmed. The Germans have got a lot more troops. The Soviets are often on the back foot here. They have penalties when it comes to kind of command chains and related to things like that, which is kind of what we've got here, the unequal struggle as well. So there's a little bit kind of twist in the balance there. The Soviets tend to be on the back foot on these missions, so they will have a slightly harder time, but it probably will make for some very interesting games. Scenarios, we've got Bridgehead, which is obviously features a bridge, and we've got another tutorial. So it tends to be about 2 tutorials for each of these sections in the book as well. The additional units, we've got the Goliath demolition team. Now, in case you're not aware of the Goliath, it's actually kind of a remote control explosive tank. Quite small, probably about a few feet across, but I've actually seen one of these close up, and they are fantastic engineering especially for the time. So it's great to see those in the game. And we also have a couple more of the Legends of the Ostfront as well. What's good? So, yeah, so we've got some of the more troops for, I think these are for the Germans. Yep. So Flampanzer. Yep, and they're going to move. It's quite a lot of troops. I'm kind of getting distracted here, just like looking at some of the rules for them. So anyway, let's move on to the next section, which is a case blue. Now, this is probably my favourite section of the book, as it probably covers one of my most the kind of point of the war that I have the most interest in, and this is actually the Battle of Stalingrad. It was just a kind of a fantastic struggle between two forces in crazy conditions. I mean, we had the winter, there was the urban battles, and of course this actually covers those city fighting rules as well, so you can kind of recreate your own ruined Russian cities on the Volga. So the first scenario for this one, actually no, I'm skipping ahead too far, Vasily Zaitsev. If you've seen Enemy at the Gates, this is the guy who's the main character. He was a real person, he's not just made up for the film. He was kind of slightly embellished a bit for the film, but this is kind of covers his background as well as some fantastic special rules. He can pretty much, I think he can damage everything. Yeah, he can hit everything on like a 2+, apart from tanks, of course. So, but he does have the downside. He just have to kind of like move every time he shoots. To kind of represent his kind of doctrine of moving and shooting. So this continues all the background for the battles, and then we actually start to move on to the scenarios. And of course, the first one is the Volga crossing, and it represents when the Russian kind of landing bases at the River Volga were kind of threatened, and they had to kind of really hold them on. The second one kind of moves on to more of the city fighting. It's an excellent opportunity to build some fantastic looking ruins there, and we also get some additional units for the Soviets as well. So these are kind of the self-propelled gun, M30, and then it moves on to Citadel. Now this kind of section covers the parts of the war when the Soviets and the kind of the Axis were fighting, but they were more on equal terms. They weren't the Soviets weren't always on the retreat. They were kind of doing a little bit better for themselves. They weren't quite pushing the Germans back yet, but they were doing much better. And it kind of follows on just from after Kursk. And this kind of, it's quite an interesting part of the war, this is, because this is when the Germans actually get to bring to bear a lot of their kind of high-tech weaponry, especially the tanks. So in these battles we'll actually find there's quite a lot of, for the German forces at least, we've got Panzers and Tigers and, Panthers and Tigers. So the Russian player will probably have a hard time facing off against with just T-34s. So the first one is a pack front and kind of focuses on the German forces using tanks against the Soviets' kind of line of anti-tank and artillery. So quite an interesting scenario there. We also got this, let's see if we pronounce Olkovata Heights. I really should probably brush up on my Russian and German for these videos. We've got some additional units for the Germans. We've got the tank destroyers, Pak 40, Stug Escort Infantry Squad, Stern Battalion Penal Infantry Squad. So that's quite an interesting turn. So we've got some convicts there. And this brings us to the, Bagration to Berlin. So I'm going to assume that's correct. I probably should have had a look at this before the video. But basically, this covers the Soviet push from when they kind of reclaiming their homeland, and then they kind of move into Germany as well to head to Berlin. So this kind of the first section obviously covers, like we said, it's recapturing the Soviet villages, and then it kind of moves on to Berlin, and this brings us to the scenarios. Let me find them. So we've got Breakout, which is kind of the Russians moving out of Russia and kind of putting the Axis on the back foot, and we also have the Battle of Berlin, which of course relates to the Soviets attacking Berlin itself. Now this has got some interesting rules for using captured enemy vehicles. So basically you can use them pretty much the same as a normal vehicle, however they kind of are unreliable and they can break down just mid-battle, and ammunition is scarce for the correct kind of calibers. So that kind of represents them not being as reliable as using your own forces tanks. We also have some additional rules for some of the other. So we've got partisan squads. What else have we got? We've got quite a lot for this actual section. Now, what of note, I would say that the Waffen SS Grenadier Division Charlemagne, which is actually the first French squad. Now, these were French soldiers who had joined the German forces, and the reason why they were kind of posted on this side of the front was because A, they kind of had a little bit of resentment for the communists anyway, and B, they didn't really want to be fighting their own Frenchmen. So that's kind of background to that, and probably the most interesting of the squad is the Nachtjäger squad, which if you've seen the MP44 with the night vision scopes, then you'll know what I mean. This is a squad that's armed with night vision scoped MP44s, which is just a fantastic piece of technology, especially for the time. It goes back to me talking about the Goliath. You really cannot fathom how advanced these guys were in terms of the technology. So very interesting kind of squad there. And then this kind of brings us now to the scenario rules, which you can use throughout the book. These mostly cover snow, mud and ice and frostbite, which is kind of interesting little rules. And you get different like D6 rolls for depending on what effects you get for driving through mud and thin ice you can fall through and get yourself into trouble. Some defences, so you've got foxholes, trenches and gun pits. Obviously what you think. Minefields and night fighting, and let's just get to my favourite part. City fighting. So obviously these are rules will be used for your Stalingrad battles. Lots of different things for rubble, movement and rubble. What have we got here? So obviously tanks moving over rubble aren't as effective as infantry, so you do have to kind of worry if you're going to get kind of beat yourself on some rock, something like that. So that pretty much covers the. Actually, no, I'll just cover sewer movement as well. How fantastic is that? So that is the Ostfront book. So having a big interest in the kind of the Eastern Front anyway, this is a fantastic book for me. It covers a lot of the battles that I have an interest in. It also kind of gives you access to a lot more units, especially for the Soviets and the Axis as well. What I do like especially is, as is the case with all these books, is the kind of fantastic artwork and background that you get in here. It really is a history lesson reading through these books. I mean, it's fantastic to kind of not only play the game but also get like an understanding for history at the same time. They're nicely laid out. They don't kind of go into too much detail, but they give you enough of an overview to kind of get an idea as to what went on at certain points in the war. So yeah, definitely it's a fantastic buy, especially if you're interested in Soviet or Axis forces and kind of recreating these battles. Everything's nicely laid out, as is kind of we've come to expect from these as well. So this actual review is going to be the start of our kind of return to bolt action. We did a few videos a few months ago. We've actually got a few more products to come up. We've got the winter uniformed Soviets. We're going to be doing an unboxing for those, as well as like a painting tutorial as well. First one we've done to bolt action. And we've also got a few other units that have come out as well, such as the Soviet naval, I forget the name of them, the naval squad for the Soviets, and also the we've got the Hellcat as well for the Americans. So stay tuned for them, subscribe to be kept up to date with our latest bolt action videos and any other videos that we do for wargaming. And thanks for watching and goodbye.